Hola, hola, muy pero muy buenos días. De verdad, para mí es un gran placer hoy conectarme con todos ustedes. Sean formalmente y cordialmente bienvenidos a esta conexión. De verdad va a ser una mañana extraordinaria, una mañana fabulosa. Por favor, ya tenemos sala abierta. Díganle a todos esos grupos que ustedes tienen de WhatsApp de sus equipos, conéctense porque la capacitación del Natural Cycle ya está a punto de comenzar. Así que por favor, rápidamente esos WhatsApp activados para compartir el link de la invitación que hemos estado compartiendo con ustedes durante las últimas 2 semanas, porque hoy ya estamos a punto de iniciar un entrenamiento extraordinario. Les quiero decir que mientras estaba preparando y leyendo el material que Kai hoy va a presentar para ustedes, aprendí montones. Así que nuestro objetivo con ustedes hoy es que salgan con todas las herramientas para que tengan muchísima más información de poder manejar uno de esos módulos como es el Natural Cycle y que podamos definitivamente aprovechar y utilizarlo con nuestros equipos y sobre todo porque es una oferta que tenemos incluida en nuestro Healy Professional durante el mes de septiembre. Quiero por favor comentarles que nuestra sesión va a ser en inglés, por lo tanto, quiero pedirles a todas aquellas personas que necesitan la traducción al español que vayan a la parte de su Zoom donde ven ese circulito que es como un globo terráqueo, el mundito, y le den clic ahí, puedan seleccionar el idioma español, porque una vez que tengamos acá, y toda la traducción va a ser a través de ese canal. Así que rápidamente, por favor, a todas las personas que necesiten la traducción, vayan al mundo donde dice interpretación y puedan escoger el idioma. Si usted está en el celular, vayan a los tres punticos, un circulito con tres puntitos, dele clic allí, escoja interpretación con el símbolo del globito y puede ir al idioma español para poder comenzar a disfrutar. Y bueno, yo creo que ya estamos listos. Bienvenidos sean a toda la gente de donde se están conectando. Díganos de dónde se están conectando. Si de México, de Colombia, de qué parte de México, de qué parte de Colombia, si tenemos gente de Chile, si tenemos gente de República Dominicana, de Panamá, de Perú, de Ecuador, de dónde se están conectando. A mí me encanta siempre ver de dónde se están conectando porque cada vez más la comunidad de Healy Latinoamérica está creciendo y cada vez más estamos proporcionando herramientas para poder lograr tener el bienestar. Entonces, ahí vemos que están desde Colombia, desde Cali, tenemos gente de Perú, tenemos gente de Colima, tenemos gente de Pereira, Guanajuato, bueno, aquí Los Ángeles también, bienvenido a toda la gente de Estados Unidos y sé que se van a ir conectando, por favor, nuevamente les digo, pasen rápidamente ese link porque la sesión ya está abierta. Y bueno, ya con este preámbulo quiero por favor presentar al invitado especial del día de hoy. Es una persona que conocí personalmente ahora el mes pasado porque tuve el honor de tenerlo físicamente en el evento aniversario de Colombia. Es nuestro especialista de producto de marketing de la compañía. Es una de las personas que más sabe de producto y les tengo que decir algo. Ha preparado este material con muchísimo amor, con muchísimo conocimiento y tiene una energía fantástica, fabulosa que estoy seguro hoy va a transmitir con ustedes. Él va a ir poco a poco con su explicación. La presentación la vamos a tener en español para que ustedes la puedan ver y puedan ir entendiendo todo su entrenamiento, pero recuérdense de ir al canal de los idiomas y cambiar a idioma español si usted necesita interpretación al español. Y si usted habla inglés, pues quédese en el canal principal para poder escuchar la capacitación de Kai. Kai, welcome to this training. For me, it's a pleasure to give you the very welcome. It's a pleasure to have it again in the whole Latin America country. So the stage is yours, or the digital stage is yours, and very welcome. And thank you so much for being here.
Wow, what a warm welcoming here, Freddie. Thank you so much for welcoming here so well on that call. I really appreciate that. And hi to everyone, and welcome to this call again. I'm really pleased to be back here. At least it's, there's a screen in between us, at least it's digital wise right now. I'm pleased to be back here. And I cannot wait to introduce you to the Natural Cycle. The Natural Cycle is a product that has been around for, well, I believe 2 years, maybe 3 years already, but the natural cycle This is really one of its kind. It is not like a module or not like a program page, that you can just, run like anything else. Because in this very module here, it is very special because we do use it in our Heal Advisor app. We have programs for the Healy 2 app, but we can also analyze in the Heal Advisor Analysis app. So it is really a huge thing. And, well, maybe you have wondered now, why did we choose to do it right now? Like, why is this program, this product training today happening? Why didn't it happen earlier? Or why didn't it happen any later? And well, I'm going to leave this one open, but I'm going to tell you after my training why we choose to do it today, exactly today, because there's a really big reason behind it. So let's just not waste any more time. Freddie, would you please be so kind and put up the presentation? Thanks. So please, everyone, bear with me. I'm going to talk a little bit slower today because we have live interpretation here. So please bear with me. I'm not going to talk that fast. All right, let's start with the natural cycle. So the natural cycle, it is like I said, it is a very extensive module. It's a module that we can use in actually all of our apps together. And the natural cycle, it was invented by Marcus Schmieke for a very specific purpose. Because we're living under cosmic influences, maybe you have heard about a solar cycle, or maybe you have heard about a lunar cycle, or also the daily cycle. These are just all cycles that we kind of live with or have to live with. And all of these cycles, they are very important to us because, well, in the best case scenario, we're always aligned with these very cycles because, well, you know that it is very important to have like a day-to-day life, right? You go to bed every day at the same time, you wake up in the morning at the same time. These are just things, that are good for you if you have like a daily rhythm, that is really running alongside your circadian rhythm. And the natural cycle is supposed to support you and to help you to get back in tune with your own natural cycle. Like a natural cycle, your own natural cycle is when you feel tired, when you feel tired and you want to go to bed, and it matches the time, your bed time that you want to go to bed every day, then this is your natural rhythm. When you wake up in the morning without an alarm or something and without any interruptions during the night, this is your natural rhythm. But sometimes these very rhythms, our, well, internal rhythms, they get out of tune, right? We wake up in the morning way too early, or we cannot go out of bed at all. We wake up, but we're so far from being awake, right? We need like 3, 4, 5 cups of coffee um, in order to really wake up. And on the other hand, sometimes we just can't go to sleep. Whatever we do, we lay down, we just maybe read a couple of pages, we had like a very relaxing tea, or we do things, that we actually do in order to unwind, in order to sleep better and to go to bed. So sometimes these cycles are interrupted. We are laying there in bed, with our eyes wide open, we twist and turn and toss and turn, and we cannot seem to really sleep in. On the other hand, sometimes we can't wake up. And these are signs that our daily rhythm or that one of our natural rhythms is disrupted. Or if we wake up very frequent, like over, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks, very frequent, we wake up in the middle of the night. We gotta go and use the bathroom, or we gotta drink, because we're feeling totally dehydrated. These are all signs that our natural rhythm might be disrupted. And if that's the case, the natural cycle is supposed to support you in a bioenergetic way to get back in tune with your natural cycles. So I also want to give you some closure here what these cycles are. Because, it sounds pretty fancy and a lot like a solar, a lunar, or a daily cycle, but it is really not really that bad to understand. So let's just talk about the daily cycle. The daily cycle is pretty much the easiest. It is a 24-hour cycle. It is our day. It is what we call a day. It is the 12 early hours and the 12 late hours that we have. This is a daily cycle. So, but there's also the moon cycle, like I said, and the solar cycle. And the moon cycle, the lunar cycle, as we call it, the lunar cycle is one, or well, we have actually also a third way of calling it a lunar month. Why is it called a lunar month? Well, a regular lunar cycle or moon cycle, it is roughly 29.5 days long. That's the period what the moon takes. Freddie, we're one. Thanks. So that is the time, the period that the moon actually takes to go in orbit once around the Earth. And it is going through all the phases, right? It is starting with new moon when there's no moon actually visible for us. And then we're going through all the phases, waxing, crescent, and we go into the first quarter, the half moon, which we call it, the waxing gibbous, the full moon, the waning gibbous, the last quarter, and so on until we get back to the new moon. So 1 month, or if we really want to be exact, 29.5 days is a lunar cycle. And then there is the solar cycle. In the solar cycle, this is the longest cycle that we have here. The solar cycle is approximately 11 years period. And this is the sun, this is the cycle where the sun's magnetic activities is fluctuating. So that means there are changes in the sunspots or solar flares as well, or a higher amount of solar flares. And this cycle, it has two main phases. It is the solar maximum, when the magnetic activity in the solar storms, and you have sunspots all over the place, when it is like the highest. But the solar minimum is when the activity is very low, when there's not many sunstorms or whatever. And during each of these cycles, the sun's magnetic field, of course, reverses its polarity. And this cycle impacts the space weather in affecting the satellites, the GPS, and the power grids here on our planet. So satellites, GPS, power grids, they can also be affected, when the solar cycle is changing. And it also enhances auroras. I mean, in the southern hemisphere of the globe, there won't be that fast any auroras, especially not in tropical climate, right? But when we look in the northern hemisphere, when we look at Norway, for example, they have a lot of auroras. I mean, even us here, pretty much in the center of Germany, even we got to see auroras last year because we had like very, very tough sun flares and very tough sunspots, on the sun. Hence why we could see it. And so the solar cycle is really the activity, the max and the low activity of the sun flares and everything. And the moon cycle, that is also the cycle that is actually influencing the natural events, like the tides, if we have the high or the low tide. This is all being influenced with our lunar and solar cycle and also the daily cycle. So let's proceed, Freddie. So there are also more factors, that we have to identify or to talk about if we want to try to get back with our natural cycle, if we want to try to get back into harmony with that natural cycle. Because what we also need to know where we are, because for example, there are different parameters that are also coming into play, when we want to get back in tune. So right now, I'm just going to switch over and talk a little bit how the natural cycle works. And then we're going to dip into the mechanics, how the natural cycle is working, and what it actually does in the background for you. So you don't have to take all these measurements, like finding out where you are, just taking different charts, put in, like, make them overlay each other to find everything out. This is not what you have to do, but I'm just going to explain a little bit the mechanics to you so you really know what a state-of-the-art module that is, what it is working in the background, and what it is doing for you. But if we want to use the natural cycle, we also have to make sure that we identify where we are. Are we in the northern hemisphere? Are we in the southern hemisphere? And if we are in the northern hemisphere, are we in Alaska? Are we in the USA? Are we in Russia? Or are we maybe in Germany, Poland, Spain, wherever you want to be? Why do we have to find that one out? It is about the gravitational forces. Because let's just take one very prominent target, and I believe you all know it, because that target I'm talking about is in Quito, in Ecuador. Because Quito in Ecuador, it is like that city is very near of the equator and also in a very high altitude. It is approximately on 2,850 meters above sea level. That is even approximately 250 meters higher than where Bogota is located. So the gravitational forces, because we're getting closer to space, the gravitational forces are a little bit lower. So, I mean, you guys are from South America, so I bet some of you have been there. I have not been there, but it's not like that you are like on the moon, that you are really walking like you're walking on mattresses. It's not like that. It is just slightly weaker, the gravitational force. And this is because you're further away from the Earth's centers due to both the equatorial bulge and the high altitude. But when we look at the other side of the globe, like let's say the poles, such as in Helsinki or in Finland, or where the gravitational forces are stronger because you're so close to the Earth's center due to the flattening at the poles, right? Because the poles, the pole caps, they're very flat. So the gravitational force around there is 9.83 meters the second. So this is a gravitational force, and since they're so fluctuating and varying, wherever you are, it is very important to also consider this once we set up our natural cycle and when we want to get back in tune with our natural cycle. Next slide, please. So, okay, let's answer the question where everyone is looking at right now. Why does it say New York? Well, New York is it's just the name, of the city which we have taken for today to just use it as an example, how the natural cycle is working. We just took New York for that, because New York is a very prominent city and it is like in an actual very good spot to explain the natural cycle to you. So, when we have figured out where we are on this planet, let's say we are in Bogota. We are in Bogota. Now we have to find out which day is actually the start of one of the phases that we're going through. So I'm going to talk about this a little later, more in detail, because we have to figure out a day. After we figured out where we are, we have to figure out the day. So we put in New York, and then we put in, well, let's say 20th of March. We're going to put in, for this very example. We see here that chart, that we have to use an overlay. We see different trigger dates. For example, 21st of March, the 11th of May, we see the 21st of June. These are different trigger dates where you can start your natural cycle protocol. But there are only 4 trigger dates that are really major, where it is really highly suggested to get back in tune with your natural cycle because the forces are with you, to just put it in words of Star Wars, I believe. So next thing after you did in the where you're at, your location, you have to make sure that you also put in the day. After you have put in the day, because this is what is starting when you choose to get yourself the natural cycle and you want to start your protocol, the first thing that is happening, you put in where you're located and then you put in the day where you want to start. So now we're coming here to a few more words, that I want to explain on the next slide. Freddie, please, let's jump over to the next slide. Because here we're going to talk a little bit about, yeah, about the different words that we also have, but that are really highly considered here whilst we are getting our natural cycle ready. Because there's also the solstices and the equinoxes that we have to pay attention to. Because, like I said, we have to make sure, that we figure out our lunar, our solar cycle. Then we have to put in the location of ours. We have to put in the day. And now we also have to figure out, if we can align, with the solstices or equinoxes. So I believe some of you may ask yourself right now, what is an equinox and what is a solstice? So equinox happens twice a year, in spring and also in autumn, because this is where day and night has an equal length. So this is where really the day and the night time is the same count of hours. And then we have the solstice. The solstice is when, well, it's an astronomical event as well, I would say. It happens also twice a year because this is where it marks where the sun reaches its highest or its lowest point in the sky relative to our celestial equator. So the summer solstice around is around here on northern hemisphere. I have to add, it is around the 21st of June and around December 21st in the southern hemisphere because we have different spring and different fall days, than you do, right? So in conversely here, we also have like that our times are changing with the winter solstice, which is happening in our case here, around the 21st. And in the northern hemisphere, it's June 21st, where it is summer. So, and like I said, the equinoxes are also astronomical events. Astronomical events, it is like such a big word, right? But it's also happening just twice a year. And this is where the sun is really directly above the Earth equator. So this is marking autumn, spring, summer, and also winter in our cases here. So here we really have to check and make sure that we also understand what this one is because our natural cycle, it is also going according the equinoxes and the solstices. So when is the day and the night actually equal to each other? Or when do we have more daylight and when do we have more night? Okay, next slide, please. And yes, since everything in every circle is so important, right? On the first slide, I told you that the lunar cycle is very, very important to determine all that natural cycle. And it actually makes sense, right? When we live according to the sun, we also have to live according to its brother, the moon. So in this final step, yeah, I would say this final step. Yeah, in this final step, we have to figure out what is the moon phase on this day. So when it was March 20th, what I said, and on the next slide, you will see, why I keep saying March 20. So at March 20, at the time when we were putting together here this presentation, which was actually in 2022, so I was right. 3 years has the natural cycle been around now. So on March 20th, 2022, we had a moon phase that we just took here, it was a full moon that we just took here as a template, in order to just take one date of the year in order to introduce to you how this whole mechanic works. So we also have to figure out what is the moon phase in order to have that big picture of what our natural cycle protocol is. So the natural cycle protocol will be different for you if you are located in Bogota, but it will also be different from the person who is living in Mexico City or in New York or me in Frankfurt. So there's always been a different moon phase, there's a different day, there might be a different time because the time also matters. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But here in this step, this is also what needs to be done. The moon phase has to be identified. I hope I'm not too fast for that poor interpreter. I'm sorry if I'm rushing too much. Um, but okay, let's proceed to the next page. So here we can see it, why we choose it. So New York, USA is our location for this natural cycle protocol. What I am showing you now, and also what I have showed you previously, what I showed you previously was actually just to let you know what everything is considered in order to just bring you your natural cycle protocol. None of what I showed you you have to do by yourself. None of this you have to do because the app is very smart. The module is very smart. It's going to put everything together with you, for you. The only thing you have to do, you put in your location, whether you're in the northern or in the southern hemisphere, you put in the day, and you put in the time. And just like that, the moon phase will already be identified and your natural cycle protocol is being generated. So in our case today, for this very example, we're going to use New York, USA as our location. It is spring in 2022, and the exact time where the March equinox in the northern hemisphere, our spring equinox, the exact time when it started to happen was 11:33 in the morning. So maybe you just want to familiarize with that a little bit. Well, no, let's actually make a little bit of an activity out of that. Take March 20th, write it down, as well as 11:33 a.m., which is in the morning, because this is what we're going to work with today. This is what we are going to work with. I know I cannot prove you right now that it really was a full moon, on the 20th, but if you look it up online, you can actually see that it was really still a full moon phase there on March 20th, 2022. I looked it up for you. I really did. So there's one more thing before we proceed, so I can give you time actually to just write down March 20th and 11:33. What you see here on the right side of the screen, ladies and gentlemen, this is something very, very, very important because this is our meridian clock. So the meridian clock is something very important, for not only naturopath, I would say, it is actually very important for everyone, who wants to do something for your well-being. Because here we can see, it starts with heart, it starts with, or it goes with small intestine, with bladder, with kidney, and it goes round and round. So what it shows you here is actually the meridians. So it is the heart meridian, the small intestine meridian, the bladder meridian, the kidney meridian, and I think you get the message. And when you look a little bit closer, when we look at heart, it says 11 to 13, which means 11 to 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. That means that the organ or the organ meridian, the heart meridian, is most active at this time of the day within this 2-hour period. So this meridian clock you should always keep close to you because if you have the Healy and you have your meridian programs, meridian page 1 and 2, or you have the really fantastic, sorry to say, the really fantastic Mac Healy meridian module, this is the times, if you want to do something good for your meridians, this is the times where these meridians are most active. So if you want to do like a program for your heart meridian, or you want to analyze any energetic blockages, or you already did, and you want to do something for it, these are the times where you should apply these programs or run the analysis in the Heal Advisor Analysis app with the Meridian module if you want to have the greatest benefit. This is where you get it from. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Meridian clock. And fair enough, we're going to work with it today. Okay, Freddie, let's proceed. Okay, so the natural cycle mechanics. I was telling you all about these mechanics now, what these mechanics, what is working in the background, what is happening in the background. But let's give you a bigger picture what really happens. You know now why you should put in that date or why you should put in the moon phase. You know that it's very important in order to create your natural cycle protocol. But let's also talk about the mechanics, like what is actually happening in the background that you get like a whole protocol for you in order to get you back in tune with your natural cycle. Let's check this one out. Freddie, next page, please. All right. So now we are back with our meridian clock. And if we look at the chart again, remember what I told you, write it down. 11:33 in the morning is the time where the equinox actually started in spring in New York City. So 11:33, if we look here at the meridian clock, 11 between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m., the heart meridian is most active, which means that the heart meridian right now is of very vital significance for us for our natural cycle protocol right now. So when we put in our app our time and day and where we are located, because when we give in when we put in where we're located, it fetches right away your time zone, right? So when we put in we're in New York, it is fetching the time zone and it says, okay, 11:33 is between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. That means the heart meridian is right now very important for us and for our natural cycle protocol. Next page, please. And now we also have to talk about the date. And if you wrote it down, the date says March 20th. If we apply our chart here to the meridian clock, we also call the meridian clock the oxidation and reduction chart. And we also have the acid and alkaline, which is, let's say, the plus and the minus to the oxidation and reduction. So if we apply our chart, which has the solstices on it, which is March 20th, the equinoxes on it, which is March 20th and September 20th, the September 23rd. And we also have the equinox and the solstice, which is June 21st and December 22nd. We have to take that chart and also put it here on the oxidation and reduction chart to find out what range of meridians or what range of programs or meridian programs here are of significance for us. So we keep in mind 11:33 is between 11 and 1, so it means the heart meridian. If we put in the chart for the dates, we see March 20th, which is where our equinox is, the March equinox. It is on the left side and it says large intestine. So if we look at this, and let's say it is like a cheese wheel, we have the upper left third of the cheese wheel that is of greatest significance for our natural cycle protocol right now. So these four programs that you see here, these are meridian programs, right? Large intestine, stomach, spleen, and heart. These programs are important for our natural cycle. But still, now we know that four are important. But yet we do not really know which of these programs to start with. And we don't have to deal with that because the mechanics is doing that for us in the background. Next slide, please. Remember, we also have our lunar chart. So when we have applied our chart, or better said, we have applied, the chart where we see that our heart meridian is between 11 and 1, and we see March is on large intestine, we see that if we apply the lunar chart, and if you look once around the lunar chart, on the left side, we see the full moon. On the right side, we see the first quarter, then we see new moon, and we see the last quarter of the moon. And like I said, if you feel like looking it up, which was like in 2022, the March lunar cycle, you can actually check it out. And you will see, that the March, that the lunar cycles are really aligning, what I told you here and what we see here. But let's get back to our natural cycle, because the natural cycle is more important than the lunar phase of 2022, right? So when we apply the lunar chart and we put it here on the meridian clock, then we see that the full moon is between the stomach and the spleen meridian. So this is also important because this is helping us to narrow down which program is of most significance right now. We know that between large intestine and heart, these four might be very important, but we can only see the big picture or the whole picture if we apply all the charts that we need. Where are we? Which means the time zone and also the location plus the day and the moon cycle. And when we have laid everything on top of each other, then we can go to the next slide, please, and see what we got to do. Because here we can see now we have all of these four programs are selected, everything, or pre-selected, to put it in a better word. So how do we actually find out which of these programs are we going to use now? Or what is the app actually doing, to make you know which of these programs is the one that the app is gonna suggest you to use. So let's go on to the next page. So now we have to apply vectors. So we're just gonna go to the middle of the meridian clock and we draw a line, a straight line, that is like right in the middle of the heart meridian, because this is where 1133 is, right? And then we're going to draw a second line, which is also going very straight, that marks our date, which was being put on the large intestine meridian. And when we have that now, when we have that ankle, we're going to put another vector in that is pointing right straight to where the full moon is. So we're going to straight put a line between the stomach and the spleen meridian. And now we go to the next page, please. If we did all that, we just draw a second line, which is just very close to the moon cycle. And this is putting our vector onto one special meridian. Let's go to the next slide. And the next slide tells us that we have here two main options. We have two main options, because on the previous slide you have seen, it is like the lunar cycle is right in between the stomach and the spleen meridian here. So that means we have two of them that we could actually start with. So if we would be in Stone Age and we would really do this, without any technical support, such as with our natural cycle module, that is actually doing all that work for you already. So none of what I showed you here is actually what you have to do. But imagine that. This everything here, this state-of-the-art science, this is all happening in the background while you have only put in the time and the date and where you are. And this is really fantastic because this is happening in the background where you are actually working in your head on something totally different that is also contributing to your well-being, of course. So this is about the mechanics, but let's go to the next slide. But let us also talk about how to use it, because right in the beginning I was telling us about we have programs for a natural cycle, we have the module in our Healy Advisor app, we have analysis that tells us natural cycle. Keep calm, tranquilo, we're gonna manage. So let's go to the next slide. So the organ that has been selected, in step 5, that is the one that is activated first, So we go in our case here with stomach or spleen, right? Spleen, pancreas that we were talking about a little bit earlier. So, and the activation frequency program, because we have different activation programs. We have 2 program pages. So one has 3, 6, one has 12 programs on it for each meridian, So when it says spleen pancreas is for your location, in your date, in your time, this is the program that you have to use to stabilize the meridian. This program will only run for 18 minutes. So, and we have, like I said, 12 for each of these meridians that could be the first selection. And all of these frequency programs are running 18 minutes and there's nothing else. What you also have to do, and I cannot stress enough on that, you always have to be hydrated. But this is not only concerning the natural cycle here. This is concerning whenever you are running a frequency and microcurrent program, because especially because of the microcurrent, it has to be it has to have like a conductive source in your body, to really be transported all through your body. So make sure you also drink water. But let me tell you something. When you use your program, your natural cycle program, the app will actually tell you to drink a glass of water. I know sometimes, some of us, they might not be that good, in staying hydrated. Some people they forget to eat, or some people they just blend it out to drink water, enough water a day. So if you're running through your natural cycle protocol, if you use that, this is added value here. This is another benefit. It even reminds you to drink some water, to stay hydrated. And this is really fantastic. So, but this is concerning our the activation programs. I'm sorry. But we also have stabilization programs. The stabilization programs, they are for the daily rhythm to get that under control, right? But also for the solar rhythm. And both of these programs are running 30 minutes. So all of these programs also, because you may ask yourself, like, do I have to run an analysis to find out which program I have to use, like of the stabilization programs? And the answer is no. When you run your natural cycle, you get up in the morning, you open the Heal Advisor app. When you get into your natural cycle module and you have put in all the parameters that you need, it's going to tell you drink some water, run the activation program, drink another big glass of water, run the next activation program, drink some water, run the stabilization program. It is really, really helping you to restore that bioenergetic rhythm of yours. So, to start with, we first want to get the daily rhythm stabilized, right? We first want to have our 24 hours under control again before we talk about solar 11 years that we want to control, right? So the first thing that we do is we use daily stabilization. That's what we're going to use for the first 2 weeks because the natural cycle protocol, ladies and gentlemen, this is nothing that is done within like 2 or 3 or 4 days. You really have to do it until you align again with everything. So you first have to run the stabilization. So when it tells you in the app, run a stabilization program for the first 4 weeks, until you feel aligned with your daily cycle, until you feel aligned with like you go to bed easily in the morning. Yes, in the evening, you wake up in the morning and you slept all through the night. You wake up easily. You can empty your bowels. There's nothing wrong. Then you have your daily cycle stabilized. So this is all as an indicator that you have been stabilized in your daily cycle. After you're done with your daily stabilization, we can switch over to the solar stabilization program. So when you feel you're stabilized there, and the app tells you during your protocol, hey, it is time to use the solar stabilization, then this is the program that you're going for. The stabilization programs are on the second program page. So the first natural cycle program page contains all the activation meridian programs. And on the second page, you have the two stabilization programs. All right, next page, please. Okay, so here we have really a practical overview of a frequency session, or let's say of a natural cycle protocol session. You wake up in the morning, easily, or when you have just started your natural cycle, you're not waking up easily, you're just waking up, right? Um, you drink water. You first want to hydrate. You first want to give like conductive properties also to your body. That the microcurrent is flowing better. Your bioenergetic field. Can take in the frequencies better. So first, what you want to do, you want to sit down 30 minutes before you start your program. You drink a glass of water, and latest 15 minutes after your first glass, like in half time of the 30 minutes, you're drinking another glass of water to really make sure you're hydrated. This is at least, which means when you feel like you got to drink more water, then please drink more water. Okay? There's nothing wrong with drinking more. It can get dangerous if you drink less, you know? So if you drink 3 or 4 glasses, it's totally fine. Then there is a program recommended for you, the activation program. And in the regular Heal Advisor app, I'm not talking about the blue app. I'm not talking about the analysis app. I'm talking about the regular Heal Advisor app. When you go through that protocol and you drink your water, you know, you can also mark it as accomplished task, you know. When you did that, and it tells you you should go for, let's say, the stomach activation program, there's a little arrow that you can click on. So it is sending you right over to the Healy 2 app so you can run that program right away. You do that, you do your activation program, and then you drink another glass of water because this is also what the app is telling you. Like I said, if you feel like drinking water during your 18 minutes, please do not refrain from hydrating at all. If you feel like you gotta hydrate, you always go for hydration. But make sure that you are hydrated, okay? Make sure that you're at least hydrated to this. And once we're done with hydrating in our activation programs, we use the stabilization programs, which is the daily to start with. And later on, we stabilize with the solar stabilization program. Okay, next program, next page, please. Thanks. So we continue clockwise. So when we start, let's say we have started with the spleen program, while we have identified our program circle, we have started with the spleen. The next activation program for meridians that is going to be suggested for us will be the heart meridian to activate. And after that, it will be the small intestine. And after that, the bladder. So let me tell you, if you have to start with a program, you know, that is like, let's say liver, you know, that is active between 1 and 3 a.m. in the morning, you don't have to do that. You don't have to start with that, you know. So when it tells you to start with that program, you can, or with this meridian, you can skip it. If you are not awake, which I'm pretty sure of, between 3 and 5, so your lungs would be next up, you can still skip it to large intestine because the app will in the background adjust itself so it is still according to your natural cycle, according to your location, your lunar cycle, and everything like that. So if so this is the just the regular movement here. So if it is during the night, if it is like in the middle of the night for you, just skip it. Just skip it because it will adjust to your natural cycle and to your location, to whatever you have put in. Okay, so when is actually the best time here also to use different programs? Well, to use different programs, you can always use your programs. You can always go just on with your day and your regular um, IMF schedule, your regular IMF routine, you know. So if you use already frequent and in a very good way the Heal Advisor, the regular Heal Advisor app, and you use the IMF schedule, for example, so that you get the push notifications every day that it is time to run this program or that program, just go on with your regular frequency habit. I mean, we tell you to not use any more than 3 microcurrent frequency programs a day. So if you have to run your activation program and you have to use your stabilization program, you might want to go from your regular schedule, 1 or 2 programs. You might want to use it with the Healy coil if it is an IMF program, to not overdo it, you know, to not exaggerate your body with all the microcurrent. But if you're still looking for some programs or some program recommendation that you can run alongside of your natural cycle protocol, it is the gold cycle. The Gold Cycle Pure program, that is really recommended. The Pure program, it is used for bioenergetic and energetical detox. This is where the Pure program, oh, and I mean, you just had a training, right, about the Gold Cycle, so you know everything about it, I believe. So the Pure program, this is one of the programs I highly recommend myself to use alongside of your natural cycle protocol. Next page, please. So when do we actually stop? Because I said it's like 3, 4 times, or 3 to 4 weeks. It's not just like that. Well, it can be actually a duration of your choice. So when you feel that you are aligned after 3 or 4 weeks, that you're aligned, and then you can just stop. But it is highly recommended to stop on the next trigger date. So you can always have like your trigger dates here, which is like the spring, the fall, the winter, in summertime. But you can also stop at the different solstices or equinoxes. So it is highly recommended to always stop when you are on one of these major trigger dates here. If you cannot do that, then just stop when you feel aligned with your natural cycle. And you can repeat it whenever you want. You can start whenever you want with your natural cycle protocol, whenever you want. But there are major trigger dates where it is just benefiting you in an energetical way even more and even greater. Hence why we say like, hey, there is trigger dates, that we're introducing you to right now. So whenever you feel aligned with your natural cycle, I recommend finding or identifying the next trigger date. If you have started on December 21st, if you look here on that chart, and you say like, it's gonna go summer really soon, and that is like February 10th, then you just go on with like 6 or 8 weeks, and this is where you finish your natural cycle protocol. Don't be scared. If you want to stop it earlier, you can just go ahead and stop your protocol earlier, because whenever you want, you can join back in, or you wait for a trigger date to roll around. We have 4 major trigger dates, which is on this chart here: December 21st, 20th of March, June 21st, and September 23rd. You can just identify that on your own with your natural cycle, but these would be the 4 major trigger dates. And here's one more thing. Excuse me. Here's one more thing why I'm saying that. Because I'm very well aware that you guys on the Southern Hemisphere, it's going to get very warm very soon, right? So here with us in the Northern Hemisphere, it's going to get very cold. But we do have, both of us, we have a trigger date coming along very, very fast. So because in our autumn here, our fall at our here at in the northern hemisphere, our next trigger date, the next major trigger date, would be September 22nd. So this is in 12 days, ladies and gentlemen. In 12 days, we are going to have our fall solace, our fall equinox here, our fall equinox. So that means we are going to be here, and at 8:19 p.m. This is where it's going to start for us here in the Northern Hemisphere. In the Northern Hemisphere on September 22nd at 8:19 in the evening. This is where our important trigger date is going to start. But for you guys in the Southern Hemisphere, it is also going to start on September 22nd, but it is going to happen in the morning. So this is one of the major trigger dates. This is one of the trigger dates where we are going to start. So remember, the next trigger date, will be first in like 2 months. So this is a major trigger date. If you feel like you're out of balance, if you want to realign with your natural cycle, if you want to realign with your circadian cycle, and with all of this, what is actually good for us according to our natural cycle, this is the trigger date. 22nd of September, 8:19. This is where we should start, according to the major trigger dates, our natural cycle protocol. Next page, please. And with this, I'm just saying, gracias a todos.
Kai, wow, wow, wow. Thank you very much. I think that today we learned something new about the natural cycle, and I think we are ready to use in a different way.
You're so
Thank you.
welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for this training and for your time. And we know that now it's 7 p.m. for you, and we appreciate your commitment and sharing your knowledge and to take this moment to share with the whole Latin American country your knowledge and for prepare this training. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me again. Thank you so much for letting me do this. Really, I enjoy every second being together here with the Latino American team. Really, really do. It's always a big pleasure to be here with you guys. And let me just put it in simple words. I'm going to see you very, very soon again, right?
We hope so. We hope so.
Oh, sure.
I'm going to switch to Spanish. Thank you so much, Kai.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a nice rest of your day. Bye bye.
Gracias, gracias. Y bueno, ya estamos a punto de terminar, pero quiero pasarle la palabra a nuestra queridísima Elba Castellanos, para que nos dé el cierre de este extraordinario entrenamiento. Elvita, estoy seguro de que aprendimos un montón de cosas que no sabíamos. Para mí, yo aquí apuntando muchísimas más cosas. Me voy ya programé en la aplicación. Ahí vi que preguntaban en cuál aplicación es, en la aplicación blanca, la que llamamos Healy Advisor App. Ya puse cuando empezaba mi Natural Cycle y el mío empieza el 12 de septiembre. Es decir, ya lo tengo apuntado para empezarlo ya en un par de días. Entonces, bueno, le dejo a usted todo el escenario.
Gracias, Freddy. Sí, así es. La verdad es que fue una sesión muy reveladora con muchísimos tips y pues muchísimas gracias a Kai porque como siempre es súper clara en sus explicaciones. Cada vez tenemos como más tarea para poderle sacar más provecho a nuestro Healy. Y bueno, ahora me gustaría solamente hacer como un anuncio, un comercial o un recordaris, como dice Freddy. Y es este sábado tenemos una cita, tenemos esta fecha súper especial, tenemos un súper sábado Latinoamérica, sábado 13 de septiembre, va a ser un evento totalmente en línea, a las 10 de la mañana hora de México, 11 de la mañana Colombia, Ecuador, Perú, Paraguay y 12 en, recuérdame esas siglas porque siempre se me olvidan, República Dominicana y Chile. Listo.
Correcto.
Y bueno, muy importante, vamos a tener invitados, por supuesto, Kai, que hoy está aquí con nosotros, también lo vamos a tener con nosotros el sábado. Tenemos noticias increíbles para este sábado, nadie se lo puede perder. Vamos a tener por ahí una transmisión en vivo desde los que ya están ahorita disfrutando de este viaje que se ganaron en Viena. Ya justamente el evento está empezando hace apenas unos minutos allá. Y bueno, se van a conectar en vivo desde allá para darnos algunas noticias, dejarnos ver qué está sucediendo en Viena y por supuesto que todos los que estemos conectados en este súper sábado, pues bueno, vamos a estar enterados de primera mano. Entonces no se lo pueden perder. Pasen la voz, vamos a estar compartiendo la liga de invitación y vamos a estar compartiendo también una pequeña publicación para que ustedes mismos la puedan compartir en sus grupos y esperamos tenerlos a todos reunidos este sábado, 10 de la mañana hora México, 11 de la mañana Colombia, Ecuador, Perú, Paraguay y 12 del día en Chile y República Dominicana. Anótenle sus agendas y bueno, listísimos para vernos este super sábado y festejar juntos las novedades que vamos a tener para ustedes. Y pues bueno, con esto terminamos la sesión de esta mañana. Kai, nos vemos el sábado y nos vemos el sábado también a todos los que están conectados por aquí. Muchas gracias por estar en este espacio, muchas gracias por compartir y bueno, a usar Natural Cycle desde ya. Muchas gracias, buen día para todos.